Hello and welcome back again. This video is looking at a 100mm wood turners box hinge. Now before I start turning and showing you how to do it, the first thing I have to say is they're not difficult to do. The most difficult thing is explaining to you actually how to do it. They're pretty logical, but there's a couple of little bits that just might be helpful to assist you in the turning process. But before we do that, let's have a little look at the hinge. I believe, I might be wrong, but this is about the largest hinge available on the market at the moment. We have designed this and we've actually bought the mould for this as well, so it is ours, and you will see, I don't know whether the camera will quite pick that up, we've actually had our company name actually embedded into the mould, so you'll know where they come from. These are ours because they've got our name on them. The box hinge, what's it suitable for? Watches maybe, small bits of jewellery, coins, anything really that a box is used for. This one has a little lip on the front there. It closes purely by gravity, and you will see when I open it out and push it back that it actually stops. This is what's called a stop hinge. So there's a mechanism on the back, and I'll show you the sorry, got a fly in the way. I'll show you the hinge knuckle on the back there. You'll see that there's actually a piece of metal cast over there, which means that it's actually kind of shielded, if you like, so you can't see all the some bits of hinges aren't particularly nice looking, so that covers quite a lot of it. So it's a decorative item to a point. However, it's just one of my personal things. I don't particularly like patterns on stuff, so these are plain. They have no patterns on at all. So that is the hinge itself. It's a nice bit of kit. It's actually really quite heavy, and around about 100mm in diameter. The turning inside is slightly smaller, and the first thing I'm going to say is the turning diameter on the top and the turning diameter on the bottom are very slightly different by about 0.5mm, but that can make a difference when you're making it. As always, what I've done before doing the video, because I wasn't even sure whether I was going to do the video, is there are printed instructions on the website that will take you through step by step as to how I do one of these. You may have your own methods. If you've seen our details before, you'll know they're called guides. They're not instructions. Instructions tell you that is how to do it. We don't do that. We give you a guide because you've got your own tools and your own equipment and your own ideas, and I have absolutely no idea what any of those might be. So what we do is show you our way of doing it, but if you've got another way, great, crack on, and it might well be better than ours anyway. So we can't cover absolutely every eventuality in every way of doing things. I know sometimes we get comments to say, oh John, you could have done this, you could have done it. Yeah, I can, but I can't fit everything into a video, unfortunately. And beware, this is probably going to be quite a long video as well, whilst we deal with all the aspects of how to turn this kit. I'm starting off with a plank, basically. This is ash, English ash, local ash to us here in Shropshire. I think it might come from Worcestershire actually, but not far away. It is roughly 30mm thick, and what I've done, I have cut it into two bits that are square like so. They are 11 centimeters square, 110 millimeters square if you prefer millimeters, and hopefully you can see a little bit of grain on there. It's hopefully going to look quite nice because I'm going to cross grain turn these, so I'm going to turn them that way on the lathe, as opposed to some boxes are made and turned that way when they're square. I quite like cross grain turning. Hard on the tools, harder to do, a little physically harder to do, but I think the results really are generally quite stunning. Anyone that's done bowls will be familiar with this. It's not unusual at all. So I've got those two bits, and I've also got a bit of scrap left over as well. I'm going to turn a little finial for the top of the box towards the end. You don't have to, but you can, and I'm going to do it because of the way I'm going to mount the pieces of wood. I've taken each block, I've marked the centre of it, and I've also used a pair of compasses to draw a circle around there. Why have I done that? Well, the way I'm going to mount this piece on my lathe is to use a 38mm drill, which is what's in the instructions. And this is where it comes to, you don't have to do it my way. Because I'm doing a video, I try and make it flow and do it all in one section without having to wait ages between, because I'm getting old and I forget where I've got to. If you wanted to save some of the wood, you could glue a block onto there and you could do it that way. The only reason I'm doing it this way is because the wood's thick enough and it's much quicker for me to show you this way. The other thing I'm going to do is cut the corners off on the bandsaw. Nothing clever about that, it just saves an awful lot of mess, and when you're cross grain turning, it's quite hard work on the tools, so it just saves that initial plunking round on the lathe, getting rid of those corners. So I'm going to put a little 38mm rebate in there, ready to mount on the chuck, or the chuck jaws, and then I'll focus the camera down on the piece of wood and show you how we go about doing each section. Here is the piece that I've put that little rebate in and just trimmed the corners off, so I'm now going to mount that. It only just fits on these chuck jaws. I'm going to mount it on there, and we're just going to roughly turn this round and the face flat here. Having turned this part round and this part flat, I'm then going to use the hinge itself as a measure to get the right rebate on the edge here. And we're going to cut down and just put a little rebate into the edge on this part here, but only as deep as the hinge leaf here. We're now going to look at two other parts. When that's on there, what I'm going to do in a minute is get a pencil and I'm going to draw around the inside there, and this is where I'm going to hollow the inside of the lid. The other thing I'm going to do is have a look at the depth of the actual piece of metal of the hinge up here, because what I don't want to do is have that exposed. I'm hoping I'm going to get a smooth joint between this flat part of the hinge here and this wood, so there's going to be another little step to get that level. So here I've got my mark for turning away the centre of the inside of the top part of this box. It's important when you turn this away to do several things. One is to make sure you turn the pencil mark completely away. The second thing is to make sure that you go deep enough that you can remount this piece the other way around when it comes to it. And thirdly, when you do it, this is just my preference, for ease of holding the piece, the walls of the inside need to have at least part of it that's flat. If you curve it and use a hollowing tool, it'll get it nice and curved. However, when you turn it round to hold it, then you might find it's not quite so easy. Now, in terms of holding this, and I just mentioned that how deep you cut it, the reason that I'm cutting quite deep is because, oh, sorry about the clatter, on mine I'm going to use dovetail jaws. However, these dovetail jaws are not big enough here to actually expand enough to fit on here. So what I'm going to do is actually use this part of the very outer edge of the chuck jaws to actually hold the piece. This bit will still hold it flat onto there and expand there, and if you've got this deep enough, you'll see a little bit later on, if it was deeper and a bigger bit of wood, I could even angle it slightly to get an off-centre turn, to get a slope on the lid if I wanted to do that as well. But these are things that you need to consider when you're doing these. So I'm hoping you can now see the little part that's appeared here, and this is where the design of a hinge comes in, because if this was very, very small, and there are some products on the market that are very thin, these things are too thin. They're an absolute devil to actually use expanding jaws on to hold them when it comes to turn them round. This is quite a nice section. I don't know how, it's probably, I don't know, about 5 mils, something like that. But I can just do a test fit on there and just check that I've got a good fit round there, and I've taken the pencil mark away, and I've still got a tiny little bit of wood just protruding from there. So I'm going to trim it just a little bit more, and then I'm going to hollow that out. I've hollowed the inside of the lid section, and we'll just do another quick test fit to make sure that that's okay, and that looks like quite a good fit. A couple of fibres there, but that's okay. What you need to consider now is when you've turned this round and done something on the other side, getting back to this part isn't very easy. So the most difficult thing about these hinges is really just doing the things in the right order. Whether you do the top and bottom first or second doesn't matter, but the order in which you mount, cut and turn a piece is really quite important. So I'm going to do a little bit of sanding and finishing in there, not a great deal, because this is obviously an instruction video, right, to show you. And then we're going to look at getting the outside of this part here level with the outside of the piece of metal on the hinge leaf here, so we don't have a step between the wood and the hinge. That's what I'm trying to achieve by doing that. Now at this point I'm going to stop, and this is where the video will be slightly different from the written instructions, because I'm going to talk to you about the top and the bottom of the hinge, because they're not the same. We've been turning this part for the top, and I can fit that on there, no problem at all, and this bit is quite wide. Now if we look at the section of the hinge here, you can see that there's quite a large gap there between the knuckle of the hinge and the side of the hinge leaf. However, if we look at the back, you will see there's some little pins, and these are the stop pins that stop the hinge opening past about 92 or 93 degrees. When it comes to present this up to here, and bear in mind that it's a slightly different size, there's a little bit of movement on there, as you can see, but I can't get, let's see if I can get, where's the best way of showing you this? These little lugs are stopping me pushing the hinge flat onto here. So when it comes to do the base, this is something you have to consider and turn this bit down. You can still turn it level with there, but you might want a step and a wider base. So just put a little step in there on the base. I'm hoping that makes sense. As with this thing, it's not really difficult to do. It's just really difficult to explain how to do it. So just to recap, those little lugs there will get in the way of a big piece of wood here, so you need to trim a little bit away. That is on the base, but at the moment we're doing the top. Now I said at the beginning, if you make this bit a little bit too deep, it might need trimming off. And now I've put this second lip on here, so you can see when I put that on there, the second lip I've just cut should be exactly flush with the hinge part. However, I've got a little gap between the two bits because this bit here sticks out slightly too far, so we can just trim that off to make sure we get a really neat fit on there. So I'm hoping you'll see the little lips I've got here mean that when I present the hinge up to there, that part there is flush with the side of the hinge, and we can now look at trimming this to the same diameter. You can do it, you can start to do it now, or you can wait until the piece is turned round. It's entirely up to you. So I've changed my chuck over. You might have just changed your jaws. We all have different chucks and jaws. So I'm going to pop that on there, and you'll see that that's going to sit, and it sits. Let's try expanding that way, and that hopefully is going to, you'll see that this isn't flat because this is still the rough part of the timber, but hopefully this part here you'll see spins pretty accurately on there. So now what we can do, we've done all the lips and parts, we can just turn this part and shape this as we want it, because this is the very top of our lid. What I'm going to do is leave a little section in here to put a finial on later. You don't have to, but you can do. So we can now look at just shaping this as to whatever shape we want to, and then look at finishing this properly on the top. So now I'm going to add a little bit of finish on here. Just beware, I'm going to put some wax on this, but don't put wax where you're going to have to glue the hinge onto the piece of wood, otherwise you'll have difficulty. So I'm just going to quickly just add a little bit of sanding sealer to this, just so I can see what the colour is like. And now you can see the cross grain across the top there. That's quite a nice, for a piece of ash, I reckon that's quite nice, to be honest. And what I'm going to do, I won't film this, I'm going to put a 6mm hole in there, so I've got something to connect my finial on the top with. I can now wait for that to dry and just put a little bit of wax or whatever finish you like on the top there. And I'm hoping what you'll see there is that I haven't got a lip between the wood and the hinge. It's just one smooth section, which is really how these hinges should be fitted. So that's the top section. The bottom section is exactly the same. Just watch out for the little lugs on the bottom here when you're turning, and that's pretty much it. Right, if you can hear me over the thunderous rain above me, here is our nearly finished box. I haven't glued it yet, and the reason that I haven't glued it is because, as wood turners, we know as soon as you do anything to wood, it releases tension in the fibres and you can get a little bit of movement. So I'm not going to glue this for another 24 hours just to make sure it's finished moving. The wood is pretty dry anyway, it'll probably be okay, but if you find that you get a twisted hinge, I'm afraid it's not the fault of the hinge, it's the wood moving and it's the fault of the wood. That is just one of the skills and parts of knowledge that you get over the years. There's another reason why I've made this finial on the top, and that's just to demonstrate, and I'm going to try very hard not to drop this because I've dropped it several times already, because this is a stop hinge. You can put a decoration on the top and the stop is going to stop any damage to that. Most of the other hinges on the market open to 180 degrees, so this part would open and smash on a surface and possibly break that. So I'm hoping that you will see on the side there, whichever side, that the top part here actually is flush with the hinge. I haven't got a step there, and that really is the correct way of doing it. So I'm quite happy with that. I could have done other things on the top. I could have put one of our little gold end caps on the top. I could have just had it flat, whichever. But hopefully you'll agree that actually that's quite a nice little project. Once that's glued in, you can of course line the inside as well with whatever it might be. Most importantly of all, it's quite fun to make. So as always, I hope that's been helpful. Don't forget there's a full written guide on the website. If you look at the pictures and just go down to the bottom, you'll see fitting guide or instructions, whatever the title is. Click there and you'll be able to download the written guide as well as see in the video. Thanks very much for watching and for your time. Enjoy your turning. Hopefully you'll enjoy one of these soon. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye bye for now.